I survived 2000 days in Minecraft and made it into a short movie. This video is basically the 1000 days and 2000 days videos merged into one. If you go on to enjoy the video, please consider liking, subscribing, and let's just get right into it. Also, just a small note, the editing does get better in the second half of the video, as these are two separate videos and I learned how to edit better in the second one. So with that out the way, enjoy the video. Somewhere deep in a huge mystical forest, a man was created by unknown entities, rumoured to be the pillagers. This was me, and I decided to take matters into my own hands and started stripping the land of its natural resources. After a time span of only a few days, I decided it's time to find people, and after moving many kilometers west, I found a small village to settle near. It was also perfect because the village was just outside of the desert heat, and the desert itself had lots of rich minerals and ores under the surface. I started to set up camp over the next few weeks and exploring the desert area to see if there was anything I could find. Somewhere after day 20, first contact was made with the nether and I brought a chicken along with me. At this time I also started making lots of animal farms. Then came Halloween and the mobs declared war on me and the village, and I managed to capture a war prisoner to show off, but sadly he died after a few days. About 120 days after spawning, I decided to venture down south to find a forest that I could take down. I spent a lot of days deforesting a massive dark oak forest. This wood ended up lasting me over 1000 days. Over this time my main base started expanding and the farming industry was a huge source of income for me. Contact was also made with the end, where I got a more convenient storage item, shulkers. By this point I was starting to advance a lot and was self-sustainable. This is where I decided I wasn't wealthy enough and dug to the bottom of the nether to find riches buried deep within the hellhole. I also had multiple encounters and mini wars with pillagers. It was easy enough to fend them off. I then saw a lot of land north to the village, saw potential in it and started moving my stuff there. I started with an automated sugarcane farm which failed horribly, only to be taken down a few hundred days later when it barely saw any profit. I also started a base there which I'll use for over 1000 days. The base I built had everything it needed and I decided to take ownership of the village, as I was far more powerful than them and it would benefit both me and them. At this point I had lots of wealth, lots of food, multiple pets and many building resources. I decided I'd start building up a town here. I was still using the old area and had functioning farms there and a pretty cool storage system within an abandoned desert temple I found. I set up a small watchtower to show my dominance over the village and the surrounding area. The villagers themselves started building up an army without me even asking, and I started building the town up with an iconic stone store that I used for hundreds of days. But as I gained power, someone watched over me, almost as if to make sure I wasn't getting too powerful. I started up roadworks and started maintaining my very small town. As I gained more wealth, I decided the tower needed to be upgraded and made one nearly twice taller, which would be revamped at least 3 times in the future. This was the first demolition and took place at around day 400. At first basalt was used for roads, but then I saw a block with far more potential for roadways. Blackstone. Too rare to build with, but common enough to make roads with. I then also took partial control over Nether Fortress and used it as an outpost to get to different parts of the nether. At this point everything was starting to get connected by nether portals. My farming industry multiplied tenfold and most importantly, my mining industry was booming. All of the building materials I gathered from mining were dumped into the village walls and upgraded the defense against the mobs and pillagers. By this point I had a resource overflow and didn't have enough storage to store everything I owned. I also went on a lot of nether voyages which were being done in hopes of finding something revolutionary out there. This all added on to my storage problems. The town continued expanding, the roads kept being digged up and fixed, and the rural areas and the rural areas of the town were quickly turning grey. It was meant to be a cool poem or something, but what was that? What was that? Bruh. To make my micronation more efficient and bring it to the next level, a quality storage building had to be built. Someone had also been attacking my iron golem, it seems. Redstone started being implemented in the build designs and the first ever elevator had been built in the main tower. The animal farms were also transported to the new location to cut down on travel time. Road expansions were now rapid. Then started a massive 100-day mining trip where I got lost in caves for 100 days straight and got as much resources as possible. Most of these resources still made up a good portion of the wealth I had over 1000 days later. The Ender Dragon was also defeated around this time. I went through a lot of struggle and pain, but it paid off as my country now had a good amount of power for its size. Well, ignoring the failed ice farm, the nether infrastructure started to expand and it is easier to traverse the nether at this point. Then some voyages begun and beautiful lands were discovered. These were marked as preservation zones, meaning my country would do anything to make sure these stay preserved, as a lot of these areas would no longer generate after the 1.18 update was released. A second stronghold was also found along the way. The nether voyages also paid off and I could now flex my riches. The end farm was also made and getting XP was far easier than before. By this point the storage room was complete and I had a full enchanted netherite armor. Things were looking good, but then the economy hit a plateau. The farms weren't being used as much, the sugarcane farm was demolished, and much more. A lot of village cleaning had been done to make the village nicer. By this point I had conquered 5 villages and set 4 to be my main, with my goal being to connect them all up. I started by taking the village up north and building a house there. I also had a decently sized mine at this point and used it to collect all of my stone. I then built a villager breeder and a villager trading hub and started trading. More voyages were done at this point and I found a mesa biome and some more riches. This is where building efficiency came to play, and I decided that since I was burning through my resources too quick, I would cut corners on buildings so I could build more of them. Huge levels of construction took place, with buildings being built to take control of different regions of the map. Blackstone became one of the most mined resources as there was huge demand for it due to all of the roadways. The second town also began construction. I decided I would put each village in its own separate state and built walls between them. At this point I also decided I wouldn't start any fights against Endermen. They might have been spying on me, but they were chill. The economy wasn't growing much, but the construction companies sure were. At this point, I started work on a museum which would hold rare mobs. I also claimed a 6th village to myself, which is where the museum was being built. The town started running out of room to expand and plans were made to expand east. At this point, I was transporting a ton of mobs which took away from the growth of my country. Then something revolutionary happened. The Wither was defeated. In a confined space, of course, to avoid mass destruction. This revolutionized everything, as I could now get building resources much faster. A road now fully connected the 2 main towns and a beacon was placed in a mining area. A secret underground project began to make a huge pool of water for rare axolotls to spawn, which horribly failed and my country had to cover it up by saying it had a different use. There was pressure as this took a lot of money from the economy. The country completely flatlined in growth as the new objective was to save rare mobs and biomes from the 1.17 update that would be discontinued in the next update. Yeah, this world was 1.17 at this moment as I didn't want to switch just yet. Then rumors started spreading that a secret underground operation was taking place that involved tools of mass destruction. Not much was known yet. This leads us up to 1000 days. Last episode we left off with a secret underground operation involving TNT. This was part of my project to preserve things in 1.17 that would be removed in 1.18. In 1.17, if you destroyed an entire chunk of bedrock and upgrade to 1.18, the chunk will be completely empty and won't load anything in under the destroyed bedrock, giving you a glitched chunk which I thought was quite cool. Location of this must be kept secret though, to not let anyone know where it is. You'll see why I done this later on in the video. However, I didn't clean the entire chunk in time, but still got a cool effect where it kept the bedrock at Y level 0 and didn't move it down. At this point I spent a lot of time gathering mobs from my museum. Mobs holding glow ink sacs wouldn't be a thing after 1.17, so I decided to collect them. I also spent a lot of time looking for 1.17 terrain, since 1.18 overhauled the terrain, meaning certain areas of my world were now rare and could not be generated in 1.18. Now my country essentially had its own holiday resort, so that's cool. While exploring I also found the world's smallest mesa. Like, I've never seen one this small. At around day 1100 I started work on my own personal castle just for storing things. It doesn't look the best, but it is just fun to build as the area was perfect for a small castle. This castle has storage, uses some redstone, has secret windows and has extra buildings and walls for it. I'll be showing all of this off for the 2000 days world tour. I had a great time building this, so it is all worth it. At around day 1200 I finally made contact with the nether ceiling and decided it is a great place to start building farms. I heard a lot of weird noise up there, so I didn't feel alone. I then decided I wanted to build a gold farm up there and got to work. This required a lot, and I mean a lot, of magma blocks. There's also a glitch where gas still spawned even though I gas-proofed the farm, but all the pain was worth it in the end as I could now get hundreds of levels easily and a lot of gold. This also allowed me to move from potatoes to golden carrots. I then demolished my failed bamboo farm and made a nice little walking area. Also made a project to cool the city using shade from the trees, which also cleared the air a bit, but then I nearly ended the entire world. I'll run you through the story. Me and my friend both had separate worlds and we always wanted to play together but couldn't because we had tons of progress in our worlds. So we thought of a system where you throw items into lava in your own world and the other person can give themselves it in their own world. Almost as if we're trading between worlds. Thinking about this now, this was a horrible idea. It seems that life agreed it was a horrible idea too. Right as we started discussing this technique, strange things started happening in my world and this is not scripted at all. We were on a voice call and I have part of this recorded. Firstly, every time we would discuss anything about this, lightning would start in the world and y'all know how rare that is. I have multiple screenshots of trees burning in front of me. The lightning would always hit the ground right in front of me, which is really weird. There's no way this is a coincidence. Another thing is that pillagers were everywhere, including my villager trader, which meant they had to walk all the way up a winding dirt path and walk into one of these villagers' areas. This might have been a coincidence, but it's still weird. A forest fire also begun when a thunder hit a tree right in front of me. This is a weird time and had me take a break from the world for a while. Here's another image of lightning hitting right in front of me. I didn't feel good about this trading method as it felt like cheating, but I came up with a solution to all of this later on in the episode. Stay tuned to find out. Moving on from all of this, I then started my next project. I wanted to collect every dye in Minecraft. I'll be posting how I did this on my second channel, which is linked on my YouTube channel homepage, so yeah, go check it out. This started with me constructing a skeleton farm, an iron farm, and a cocoa bean farm. This also helped advance my world on the side, so this was worth it. Now it was finally time for me to address something. My nether portal room was hideous. This gave me the idea to build a new one to replace it. There we go. That's a bit better. But then I realized something. This world has too much ambitions and I didn't have the time to finish all of them. I often took multiple month breaks from Minecraft and could never stay consistent. I hinted earlier that I found a solution to a lot of problems earlier in this episode. With the amount of projects I wanted to undertake, I knew I couldn't do this alone. So this is where I started preparing. Preparing for new players. I was about to turn my 1600 day single player world into a multiplayer world. Preparations begun. I built up a spawn area and made a nether tunnel leading to my town. Then came day 1666 and the first new player joined. That day thing is a weird coincidence because I didn't plan that at all. I only found out while writing the script that he joined on that day, but that's interesting. The first new player has joined. Welcome in Giant Luca 123. I'll be referring to him as Luca for the sake of simplicity. While Luca was getting comfortable in the server, I started working on housing estates to expand the village. I named this 505 Avenue because the buildings look like the album cover for the song 505. These houses didn't look good, but they fit the purpose. Luca liked the theme of my random building in the plains biome, which was inspired from one of my earlier videos, so he began construction on this area rapidly and I was amazed at the progress. I later decided to honor his work by naming the village Lucarville after him. By this point he had built multiple stores, a church, a watchtower, a house for himself, a blacksmith building and some farms. He then also begun work on a massive trading hall. This became the third tallest building in the world at that time. Then came what could have been changed to the server. A third member. I will refer to him as AK. Right as he joined, he decided the world tour was too boring and only 1 minute in caused absolute chaos. He fought piglins with his bare hands, kept losing the free items we gave him, and jumped off multiple buildings. We had enough and Spawn killed him until he left, and then we banned him. We looked at this as a learning experience for what to do if our server had a crazy member. We would need these skills in the future, trust me. At this point we were unified and identified as a single country. This country was named the United States of Monogia. We now had double the manpower and it was time for us to show the world who's boss. So we built a disco hall. Yeah, anyways, moving on. As we were approaching 2000 days, Luca gave me a deal I couldn't refuse on one of his buildings. It only cost a few emeralds for a pretty decent building. I accepted, thinking that the deals were over, but then he gave me multiple other deals. I accepted all of them because I couldn't refuse them considering they would cost way more in the future. He then basically gave me a deal for like almost every other building and even considered selling his own house. Since he built so much in such a short span of time, he knew he could get an easy bunch of cash just by selling them for very cheap prices and then could build more using this cash and repeat. Then, on a lonely spring night, I hit day 2000 and logged off midway through so Luca could experience day 2000 as well. Anyway, this is it for this episode. By this point, I still didn't have too much footage of what I did, which explains all the cinematics. The world has only just begun taking off as we now have 2 serious players instead of 1. If you want to see where this world goes in the future, make sure to like and subscribe as each episode will get more and more exciting. In the next episode, we may or may not have caused some chaos. Stay tuned.